MBA. We're going to talk about leadership. I am thrilled to be joined today in the booth with Maya and with Sam. Watching from Toronto, we've got Kelly, and I'm told Faith Saley is joining us by remote today. So hi, Faith. Good to have you as well. Before we can talk about leadership, I want to just mention how stuck we get on semantics. Loyalty is a great example. Most of the time when I talk to brands and to companies, they talk about how important loyalty is and how loyal their customers are. And I ask them to try this simple test. If your customer, your prospect, your partner had the chance to buy a substitute for less, would they? And if the answer is yes, then they're not loyal. Because what loyalty means is that someone will expend effort or money to stick with you. So airlines like to talk about the fact that they have loyal flyers, but except for the frequent flyer miles, most of them don't, because given the chance to take a flight for $50 less, most of us will. So that's loyalty. Where does leadership come into this equation? Well, leadership is not management. We are all capable of leadership, and if it's our job, we can manage, but they're different. So here we go. Management is what we call it when you tell somebody what to do, and that your goal is to get them to do what they did yesterday, but faster and cheaper. That's what managers are charged to do. They're swingmen, they're middlemen. Leaders, on the other hand, challenge themselves and others to go to a place they've never been before, to go there with some risk, to go there without a map, to go there when they're not sure. Managers have to have authority. Based into the definition of management is you have the authority to tell people what to do. Leaders merely have to take responsibility. Now what we do as leaders is we have to see and describe an alternate future and then do something difficult, scary, risky, putting ourselves out there, not because we have authority, but because we care. So in the Alt MBA, we don't have a lot of spreadsheets. We don't teach people techniques that you can just pick up in a textbook. That what we're trying to do is create an experience. That if you can experience what it means to lead, then you can do it again. And all of us have led sometime in our lives. When we were 3 or 7 or 12, we did some form of leadership. The question is, why can't you do it again? What's holding you back? And usually what's holding us back is that it's easier and it feels safer to merely manage. So my definition of leadership, back to my definition of loyalty, my definition of leadership is, will people act in a different way, more bravely, more generously, more insightfully, because you opened the door for them, because you established a new standard, because you showed up and pointed the way and turned on the lights and said, follow me. Leadership is not telling people how to do it. Leadership is encouraging them and motivating them to figure out a new way to go forward. So in American corporate practice, we see precious little leadership. An example will be, there are a bunch of companies that make baseball bats out of wood. And there was a movement in Little League to ban wooden bats because aluminum bats have various benefits to them. Well, who spoke up against the ban? The wooden bat people. Because the wooden bat people are managing. They're managing expectations, they're managing shareholder value, they're managing the day-to-day. Leadership would have been one of those companies standing up and leading the way into this new territory of how are we going to live in a world where bats are made out of aluminum instead of wood. If someone had done that, others would have had to follow. And we're never sure if it's going to work. And there's more than just the CEO showing up and deciding to lead. There's more than just public policy issues. It can be about design. It can be about technology. It can be about the way we treat our workers. In the story we tell our customers. And it doesn't have to start at the top. It can start with you. You can identify a place that you want people to go. You can seek enrollment. Who's with me? who wants to follow me? Do we wish to do this together? And those are the key steps to understanding how you can show up at work in a way that causes change to happen. So that's my riff for today. You may hear some bandsaws in the background, but I'm hoping this microphone will help us with that. And now I'm going to turn to Sam, who's at the control panel. Apparently we've been hearing from some really cool people from around the world. So thank you all for tuning in. What do you got?
All right, this is from Zihan. How do I know if I'm a good leader? Should I listen to my fans or critics?
Zihan asks whether we should listen to our fans or our critics. I have an interesting relationship with criticism. The right kind of criticism is priceless. Criticism from people who seek to go where you are seeking to go, who have the insight and the generosity to show you how to do it better, that's priceless. Almost none of us have enough of that. But then there's the other kind of criticism, and this criticism comes from either people who wish you well and don't want you to get hurt, so they tell you to do nothing, or it comes from people who are jealous or afraid, who tell you to do nothing. And both of these sorts of critics must be ignored, because even though they may mean well or may not mean well, they don't get what you get. They don't see what you see. So ignoring those people is essential. And the same thing goes with your fans, that the fans told Bob Dylan not to go electric because they were fans of the old Bob Dylan. And famously, what he decided to do was repeat city after city for 3 years when he toured. Because he said, the first year, I'm going to disappoint most of my old fans. First year, I'm going to disappoint most of my old fans. The second year, the people who liked it will bring their friends. And then the third year, I can get back to work. And the same thing is true with many forms of leadership. That what we need to do is be clear about the why, as Simon Sinek would point out. Be clear about why we are headed this way, who is in our tribe, what we will get from it, what does it mean to be on this journey. Then when we get enrollment, the people who are enrolled will give us the best feedback of all, because we've empowered them to see what we see, to know what we know, and challenge them to help us take it to the next level.
All right, this one's from Ricardo. I had a boss who said that leaders never apologize for their decisions. Do you agree?
Wow. Most of the time, any question that starts with, I had a boss, and includes the word never, my answer is, no, I don't. So, what's an apology? An apology is something that a brave and confident and generous leader is capable of doing. Beware of people who insist that everything they've ever done is right and that everything they've ever done is fabulous and that they have no need to apologize. Because those people have also committed to not learning anything. I think it's totally appropriate to not apologize for doing what you promised to do. If someone goes to a vegan restaurant, the owner should not apologize for the fact that there's no hamburgers on the menu. It's a vegan restaurant. Of course there are no hamburgers on the menu. But if you are doing this thing on the fringes and you're doing things that are wrong and you learn how to do them right, by all means, close the circle. Point out what you learned. Make it clear that if you're doing it again, you're not going to do it that way. It feels to me like the right kind of apology with the right effort is a great way to build a bridge, not tear one down. And I don't recall ever meeting an effective leader who refused to apologize.
All right, this one's from Fariba. How do you encourage your employees, even if you think a decision they're making or idea they have is terrible?
These are great questions, Sam. Thanks, Maya. Thanks, crew. Here we go. You could do everything by yourself if you want. And if you do everything by yourself, you will get exactly what you would do. There's a cost to that. And the cost to that is you don't get a lot of leverage. The alternative is to let everyone do anything they want, in which case you're never going to get what you want, but you're going to have an enormous amount of leverage. So the work is to find the thing in between. The work is to say, you know what? I hired a designer and I don't like his logo, but it doesn't matter because whether I like the logo or not has nothing to do with our vision and our mission. So it stands. Because that's the only way I'm going to be able to build a culture of people who can do work that they are proud of. That's really different than when Bob, engineer third level, comes to me with the nut and bolt he spec'd for the third floor of the battleship, and it doesn't meet spec because the wall's going to fall down. This is not, in that moment, a matter of boosting Bob's ego. It's a matter of saying, what's it for? Because if you're giving me work that doesn't match the what's it for, then we can't use it. You're sabotaging the entire mission. So part of what it means to be a leader is to be super clear in advance about the what's it for. Who am I trying to change? When we bring this forward, will it give us the desired outcome? Now we get to have a conversation, and it's not, well, let me tell you what I would do. It's going back to first principles. Why are we here? What's it for? Is what you suggested the best way to get what's it for? If it's not, how do we cycle so we get the answer that we want? That is at the essence of what it is to build a team and lead them going forward, is to set a standard and understand the structure underneath the standard, not to insist that everyone read your mind. Because if that's what you're trying to do, everyone's going to be frustrated.
This one is from Benaz. What is one mistake you witness leaders making more frequently than others?
I think that a really common leadership mistake goes back to the question a minute ago about apologizing. That what we do is we lionize and turn into heroes leaders who didn't listen, right? That all these leaders who were innovators and who moved things forward didn't listen to their people. And we're proud of them because they overcame the doubts and went forward. So we've trained folks who want to be heroic leaders to think that what you need to do to accomplish that is not listen, deny the rules of physics, deny the law of gravity, deny all sorts of history about what actually works. And in fact, don't even bother learning history because that's just another form of listening. And I think that that's a recipe for tragedy and disaster. That the people who have actually created breakthroughs had skills. They understood the foundational principles. So when Jackson Pollock started doing his work, many critics said that he was a crank. But you know what? Jackson Pollock was also a really good painter. And the fact that he understood paint and imagery and the canvas enabled him to use this thing as a tool. So he could ignore just a few critics on just a few areas as he went forward. So what we have to do as leaders is not merely listen to our hunches, not fall in love with that voice in our head, but to understand that a lot of the time we're wrong, and that listening carefully to the marketplace and to our peers helps us get to where we actually want to go.
This one's from Nancy. I'm hiring for a technical role at my company. We have 2 equally qualified candidates. How do I determine who gets the job?
Hire the taller one. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. I really have trouble with the word qualified. I don't even know what that word qualified means. Qualified in what way? Because they know what the square root of 17 is? Every single time we boil it down to a spec, then we've probably figured out a job we could outsource for less than you're going to pay those people. For me, qualified means, are they flexible? Are they intuitive? Do they listen? Can they speak? Do they know how to develop a theory? What do they do when they're wrong? How easy are they to talk to about your work and their work? Now, if you still think these people are equally qualified based on those sorts of parameters, then I'm at a loss. In that case, hire the tall one, hire the short one, flip a coin, because you won. It's fine. But most of the time, companies don't hire that way. Most of the time, companies are looking for a checklist right out of the book. So my rule of hiring, which I've been really happy with, is I try to work with people before I hire them. Because when someone does a project, you're not evaluating whether they're good at interviewing. You're evaluating whether they're good at working with you, which is the reason you're hiring them in the first place. And that idea, as we get more flexible in the workforce, I think is going to become more and more important, because it's the personality that people bring to the office, their flexibility, their ability to be soft when they need to be soft and difficult when they need to be difficult. Those are things that are much harder to measure in a standardized test.
This one's from Vasilius. How would the Alt MBA have changed you as a leader if you took it 20 years ago?
Boy, I wish I had taken the Alt MBA 20 years ago. That is why I started it. That most of the time, people who create things at some level are doing it for themselves. And that's what I was thinking when we built the Alt MBA. Learning how to see. It was a really expensive few decades, learning how to see. Learning how to make decisions. Thinking about the decisions I made that cost me a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of heartbreak. Learning how to persuade other people to my point of view. Those three things are at the heart of the Alt MBA. I have a real, in quotation marks, MBA. An MBA that today would have cost $200,000 or more dollars. And I know what a real MBA is. Some of the things you learn in 2 years at an MBA are valuable. And many of them you can learn from a textbook. Many of them you can learn in other faster, cheaper ways. But the things that we teach in the Alt MBA, the experiential, the group work, the connections, the coaches, I didn't see any of that when I was at Stanford. And it may have changed, but I'm not sure it has. What we are trying to do in 30 days is create new habits, create a new way of seeing, create a new way of being in the world. We do it the best way we know how, with a high amount of intensity and a big safety net underneath so that you don't fail. And that is something that would have made an enormous amount of difference to me when I was 32 years old. And I hope that we can share that with other people now.
This one's from Liza. You say you don't give reassurance. Why?
Not only don't I give reassurance, I don't think other people should give reassurance, because reassurance is futile. Here is why. If you need a little reassurance right now, it will make you feel better. And then a minute from now, you will need more reassurance. Because reassurance, even more than bathing, doesn't last very long. It wears out. That the voice in our head, the resistance, the fear, it will say, oh, la, 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 loud enough that we will forget that we were just reassured. And so if you are an Amazon author and you go read a positive review, that's great until the next time you see a negative review. And now you're going to need even more reassurance. And back again and back again and back again. So I don't believe positive feedback in the form of reassurance is sufficient insulation to the voice of the inner critic or the external critic. I think what we have to do is learn how to live with the voice in our head instead. And so we do not spend a lot of time in the Alt MBA, nor do I personally, saying, everything's going to be fine, you're great, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, because it doesn't last. I'd rather teach you to soothe yourself. I'd rather teach you to see what's actually true, which is that there's a voice in your head that's working overtime to sabotage you. And if you can learn to dance with that voice, the voice loses its power. And then you don't need reassurance to know that in fact you are okay, that you are personally charismatic, that you are capable of solving interesting problems and leading. You can tell yourself all of those things because they're true.
All right, this one's from Miguel.
How are we doing on timing there? Because I've been ranting a lot.
We have 11 minutes.
Okay, these are great questions.
Okay, this is from Miguel. As an organization gets larger, there's a tendency for the institution to hinder creativity. How do you keep this from happening?
Why does the organization hinder creativity? It does it because they prize reliability and predictability over what they're going to get from innovation. And if you're not prepared to change that priority, you're not going to be able to solve the problem. So, I was a beta tester for the Mac in 1983. I have owned more than 40 different models, practically every model that's ever been made as far as I know. I used to be buying them a dozen at a time for my company. I've been through the trenches, a member of the tribe, met Steve, get the whole thing. Like me, there are a lot of people who look at Tim Cook's Apple from the last 3 years and say, whoa, a watch is not innovation. And it's certainly not innovation to just make your profit go up by coming out with a better version of the iPhone. What happened? Well, it's clear what happened. What happened is there's thousands of people who have stock options, and the best way to reward your coworkers is to make the stock price go up, and the best way to make the stock price go up is to reliably move forward without death-defying innovation. That's what happens as soon as you go public. That's what happens at big companies, unless you're willing to work really hard against that tide. And so we have, as Schumpeter says, creative destruction. We have this constant cycle of people who have less to lose crossing across the chasm of innovation. People who have less to lose daring to deal with the innovator's dilemma. So Christensen's book is brilliant in this respect, in the sense that he understood that you can't have it both ways. That you're either going to sign up for this constant sense of leaping or you're not. What does that mean to you? What it means to you is if your value add, if your contribution is that you are ready to take responsibility, to leap, it might be you need to do it at a different company. It might mean you need a different boss. It might mean that actually the company's okay with innovation, but you're just afraid and that you're not accepting enough responsibility. Any of those three things could be the case. But the thing that's not okay is to simmer in it and to stew in it and to hide your light. That there are alternatives. You don't have to start your own gig, but there are definitely alternatives. And it doesn't have to be about money. The fact is, if you blog every day, you can practice innovating. If you make YouTube videos, you can practice innovating. If you're willing to generously publish your work, your ideas, and your thoughts to the world, you can practice innovating. And maybe you don't get paid for it the first time or the fifth time or the 10th time. But sooner or later, if you are that linchpin, that voice, that person who brings something to the room, people are going to seek you out. So you don't need to wait to get discovered by your boss or by someone who's going to give you the magic key that absolves you from responsibility. What you have instead is the ability right now to say, I have stuff I'm willing to put into the world and I'm willing to own the outcome, positive or negative. You should let me do that. And if you don't let me do that, I'll go find a place that will. Because we need that light you've got, and it would be a shame to keep hiding it.
This is from Harrison. As a manager, I've been asking myself, how do I evaluate success? And it usually comes down to numbers. How do you evaluate success?
Yeah, it's really tempting. Numbers were a fairly recent invention, and the idea that we can put them on an axis and just stack them up, I mean, maybe the invention of baseball was the beginning of that, but right around then. So, you have a number 4 bestseller? Why isn't it a number 3 bestseller? Oh, you batted 322? Why didn't you bat 324? One number, one axis, up, up, up. It's so easy. It absolves us from so many forms of responsibility. Don't blame me. I outranked 7 other people. Right? The Jack Welch super lazy school of management is all about fire your bottom 10%, rank them on one axis, here we go. Well, you can't have it both ways. Either that's okay or it's not. If it's not okay, then you need new axes. You need to develop nuance in how you decide what's important and what's not. You need to accept the fact that it's okay to have an axis that's not easy to measure. For me, it's something like trust. I would like to be trusted. It's important to me. It is more important to me to be trusted than it is to be popular or profitable. That's my metric. Is there a way that's easy for me to measure? No, it's not. That's okay. It's still my axis. People have asked me recently about the Net Promoter Score. The Net Promoter Score is a simple measure, there we go, the word simple again, of how many people would recommend you to a friend. You know what? There's a really easy way to make your Net Promoter Score go up. Reward people for recommending you to a friend. I don't think that's the goal, though. Back in the day, when radio was important, there were ratings books. Arbitron would give a diary to people, and you'd write down in this diary what radio station you listened to. So a consultant made millions of dollars going around to lots of radio stations and said, I'm going to tell you the secret to make your ratings go up. And they paid this guy money, and they said, all right, what's the secret? What songs should we change? What format should we change? He said, nah, you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is say your call letters over and over and over again. Triple the number of times you say your call letters every hour. Why? Because it made it more likely people would remember what to write in the diary. So your ratings went up. Did they really go up? Of course not. All that went up was the number of people who remembered to write down your call letters. Well, the same thing's true with most of our metrics. If you have a simple, easy to measure metric, there's probably a simple, scary, inappropriate way to make that number go up. That's not the point. Just because it's easy to measure doesn't mean it's important. Let's do one or two more.
Yep, we have 5 minutes. Okay, Ettore. I think some other freelancers and entrepreneurs can relate to the stress of instability, especially financial. Can you offer some ideas on how to be comfortable with uncertainty?
Thank you for this question. Is this our friend Ettore in Connecticut? Probably.
No.
Oh, okay.
Different
Ettore. I love the fact that there are people coming from all over the world here. Here's an answer. I don't know if it's surprising or not. The simplest way is to dramatically decrease your requirements. If we think about this idea of ultralight camping, one way to go on a hike is to bring 40 pounds of gear with you. That means you have to carry 40 pounds of gear, but it means that you have a softer cushion to sleep on. The other way to go hiking is to bring 6 pounds of gear with you, which means that you don't have all of the comforts, but also you don't have to carry very much on your back, which means you can travel much faster, which means you're in the woods for less time, which means you actually spend more time sleeping at home in the bed you intended to sleep in. So the same thing can be true in building the life of a freelancer, which is if you don't live well, if you eat black beans and brown rice and live in a tiny little apartment, your requirements are lower. If your requirements are lower, your freedom goes up. If your freedom goes up, you're more likely to be creative. If you're more likely to be creative, you're more likely to get the gigs you seek. And if you're more likely to get the gigs you seek, you're going to be able to afford a nicer place to live. So this idea of not getting behind the 8 ball gives you the freedom to dance the way you want to dance. I'm a huge fan of Jay Levinson's original concept before guerrilla marketing of having multiple streams of income. Go do your day job for 40 hours a week. But at night, don't turn on the TV. Get rid of the TV. At night, spend 3 hours doing your freelance work, your creative work. Because you know how much money you have to make from that? 0, because you have a day job. And keep doing that and doing that and doing that until it's more than working. Because the creativity that you're excusing yourself from is the creativity you need. If you're constantly saying, well, I have to fit in and do dumb stuff because I got to pay the rent, you're going to get trapped paying the rent. The alternative is to go ultralight, to figure out how to fly in a different way, in a way that makes some people decide that the work you do is irreplaceable, to be that linchpin. That's the goal, right? Not to please everybody, just to please a few people who will decide they can't live without you.
All right, last one.
Last one from Sam.
All right, this is from Francesca. I see so many examples of women having a harder time getting a chance to lead. How can I stand up for myself in a room full of older men who don't want to listen?
Yeah, this makes me very sad, Francesca. It's unfair, and I wish we could fix it today. The fact is that there's been more change in the culture of the West in the last 30 years than in any 30 years in the history of mankind. That we went in 1960 when I was born from very few women having important roles in the workplace to most of them having important roles in the workplace. That happened in my lifetime. So that's not an excuse, but it's a bit of an explanation. And culture shifts fast in some ways and slow in others. So here's the best advice I have for you. Speaking as someone who has not had to confront this, and I have nothing but sympathy for what you're trying to wrestle with, and I hope that this helps. You can't change the system all at once, but what you can change is the voice in your head. And if the voice in your head is holding you back, that's not helping. What it means is that the power structure has corrupted the voice in your head and put it to work for themselves. That what is essential whenever we are trying to get people in power to listen is to change the voice in our own head first, to figure out how to befriend the lizard brain and the resistance and not let it sabotage what we're doing. Because what people read in us is our confidence, our authority, our belief in what we are actually doing. That figuring that out helps you get 80% of the way there. The second thing is learning how to sell. Actually taking a gig in your spare time, selling something. It can be door to door if you want. It can be on the phone if you want. Learning how to sell. Being able to talk to somebody about something you care about and getting them to believe you and pay you money for it. Because we're in the idea business now, all of us. And what we have is this opportunity to show up with an idea that's worth more than it costs. And some people are going to be so stuck and so misogynistic and so afraid that they're not going to buy it from you. But their competition is. And that's how we change the culture. We change the culture because the losers learn a lesson. And the lesson that they lose is diversity pays off. That it doesn't matter what the messenger looks like. It doesn't matter what kind of shoes the messenger is wearing. What matters is what will get you to move forward. So I am optimistic that we are on the cusp of this cultural change happening even more. That people are going to look past DNA and chromosomes and start to understand that seeing people for who they are and understanding ideas for what they offer is where we need to go. But along the way, a lot of people are paying the price. And it's bad enough you have to deal with the voices outside of your head, but you can begin by straightening out the voices in your head, because that's something everyone has wrestled with, whether it's Bono getting stage fright before he goes on stage, or a 22-year-old intern afraid before she gives a talk at Bain. It's always that same voice. Figure out how to befriend it, to dance with it, to understand that we've got a shot. Over my shoulder is a picture of Annie Kenny, and I put her up there on purpose. Annie Kenny, completely unsung, is largely responsible. She was the last straw that gave women the right to vote. And I tell that story in my book, What to Do When It's Your Turn. But basically what she did was, at the age of 20-something, she stood up when her member of parliament said that women didn't deserve the right to vote. Interesting trivia, Winston Churchill was also on stage. He was only 28 or something at the time. And she said, that's not fair, that's not right. And the MP said, sit down, young lady. And she refused. She said, that's not fair, that's not right. And he ordered her to sit down again. And she refused. And the third time he had her arrested. And as a result of Annie Kenny being arrested, it became a sensation across the United Kingdom and then spread across the ocean. And not too much later, both in the UK and in the US, women got the right to vote. Long overdue. Partially because one woman stood up, overcame her fear, and spoke her truth. So I'm hoping that resonates with you. The Alt MBA is completely full for October and November, but we have another session that we're doing in January, and the applications keep coming in for that. So if it's something you're interested in, I hope you'll check it out at altMBA.com, and you can read what our students say at, what's the URL for alumni and
altMBA.com/testimonials.
/testimonials. So see what other people say. Thanks for tuning in. Go make a ruckus.